Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the AEC Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders of the AEC. Today with us, we have Pat Miller. She is the founder and president of Blue Diamond Construction, which specializes in commercial carpentry and metal framing. For more than 30 years, Pat has worked with general contractors, architects, engineers, and developers to design and build medical and office buildings, apartments, churches, cafes, supermarkets, and other retail stores. 2023, Pat published her award-winning, internationally best-selling book, Kicking Karma's Ass: Unbelievable Stories of Strength, Resilience, and Perseverance. Everything told with a twist of humor, a memoir of her personal and professional comeback after a series of devastating losses. Pat, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Valentine. Thank you for having me. It's nice.
That's such an impressive background.
Yeah, I've amassed to add it up a little bit. I have a little bit of everything that happened over my lifetime, but I just rolled with the punches. I had some unfortunate incidents happen in my life, and I had to rebuild my life at 52. So I wrote the book as kind of a beacon of light for other people who are going through some tough times in their life. And it's basically a story of perseverance. When life, throws you lemons, you got to make lemonades. So I had to restart my life, like I said, and I wound up running the company that my late husband and I built together. And only I did it by myself. So, it was scary, but I did it. I'm here.
You're here. You survive. And we're going to get there. I don't want to spoil everybody on
That's okay.
how that happened. Tell me everything about you. How you ended up in construction.
So that's a great question. So I actually have a degree in accounting and a minor in business. And I wound up in construction because construction actually picked me. It was my husband's trade. So, we were a young family, my husband and I. He was a union carpenter here in New Jersey. And in unions, you only work as long as the job takes. So he was always unemployed. So sometimes he was unemployed when he was employed. And I said, my son was a baby, my firstborn. And I just said, that's it. I can't do this anymore. Took $100 out of his last layoff check. And I said, I'm going to make flyers and business cards. So I went around to all the towns and we put them in every empty store. And we landed our first job. It was called Workout World. It was a famous gym here in New Jersey. It was their flagship store. And we haven't looked back. We never looked back. So I took control of our future by going out there and taking a chance, right? I took a chance with $100. Now, when your last layoff check is only $420, $100 is a lot of money. So I took that and I got it made and it paid off. So I'm proud of that, and my husband did the work in the field and I was used to my background in business and accounting. And I did all the necessary evil work in the background. I did the hiring, the firing, the procurement, the estimating, and I did all that stuff. He got all the accolades. He was in the field. He got to go on all the golf outings. So he was a man's man. So it worked out well. We built quite a business together. And then unfortunately, like I said, we'll get into that a little bit. He was diagnosed with cancer in 2014. So all of that came to a screeching halt. And I took care of him for 2 years. So I didn't do any work for 2 years. So
Sorry about your loss. But it's such a great story that you guys together decided to, do your own destiny, right? Like you decided to to start building your company when you were in a really low position.
Yeah, we were young. And I just said, you get to a certain point sometimes where life makes choices for you. I say that often in my life. And I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to allow, I have babies. I'm not going to allow anybody else to control our destiny. And I took a chance, right? No risk, no reward, And like I said, that was a lot of money back then. That was back in the early 90s. So, $100 was a lot out of 420 and it paid off. But, I think it was a little bit of grit and anger and, trying to just make it, trying to just say enough of this working 9 to 5 or 7 to 3:30 for someone else. And, well, were we lucky? Maybe. I think like to say hard work paid off because we would sit at the table until 11, 12, 1 in the morning. So, and we would bid jobs and we'd bid and bid and bid and bid. And then, everybody just kept calling us and architects loved us. So you do good work, people refer you. So we always hung our hat on that in our company that we have to bring ourselves to an upper, echelon of the trade because there's a lot of competition. Everybody can be a carpenter. They say in our industry, anybody can hang drywall, right? It's just a board, but you have to do it quality. You have to do the finishes right. You want to see, some people spend a lot of money on their paints and their finishes. So we always held ourselves to that high echelon and it's paid off. It's paid off. We created quite a bit of relationships over the years.
That's so interesting. And I used to be, I don't know, because I'm a little bit younger or because I was naive or I don't know, but I used to think that like it was more of when you build a company, it's more of a sprint, not a marathon. And the more I own my company now, my second company, and the more I work, the more I believe and listening stories like yours that's not the reality. Maybe there are some companies that it's like in a sprint and they can get success really fast, but like 90.9% of things in life, it's just about perseverance and working hard and eventually you will get there. You don't know when, but it's about that and showing up. It sounds so stupid. Like I remember one of my bosses told me like, you just need to show up, do a good work and show up. Sounds so stupid, but it's true. And it's really hard to do. It's extremely hard to do because you do it once, you do it twice, you do it on the good moments, but during the bad moments, it's 10 times harder to do. So
it is.
But you think, just a question, do you think that creating a business is for everybody?
Excuse me? What
creating your own business, like building your own company, is something that it's for everybody?
No, it's not for everyone. And you know what? If I would say that, it would be bad advice. It's not for everyone. You have to have a certain mindset. I was talking about this the other day. I try to help the younger generation. Everything I do. My kids are older now and they're like, why are you telling them all the secrets that you learn? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be around forever. And I think they're working hard. They're just going about it the wrong way. When you're first young, and we did it ourselves, we got to bid everything. We got to take everything. We got to bid. And a successful business person knows when to walk away. Not every job is a good job. So I just gave some advice to a 33-year-old. He's a great sider, a roofer, and he made a mistake and he took a wood framing job. I said, what are you doing? It's not your wheelhouse. I said, it's okay if you want to add services to he's successful. I said, but you got burnt. You got burnt because you don't know the pricing. You don't know what goes into it. And if you're going to change your direction and add a new service, you have to have skilled site people to help you through that transition. And he's like, you're absolutely right. I made a mistake. He bid it way too cheap because he doesn't know the trade, and I kind of helped him out. I did because I knew the developer. The developer called me to come take over his work. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I feel, especially in our industry, in construction, you have to have respect. I do a lot of work with my competitors. And the only reason why I do is because we respect each other. There's plenty of work for everyone. Sometimes they're too busy. They ask me to help them out. We do a joint venture. My drywall guys will need metal framing. I'll need drywall, but they'll bid both. So we're both bidding against each other, but we still help each other out, and I think you're right. It's not easy. You have to show up. And he learned that because he wasn't showing up. He figured he could put his sub out there and everything would be great until he found out that the pitches were off and the roof was dying into the closets 9 inches. And he's a roofing and siding guy. He didn't know how to fix it. So I kind of helped him out. I put a super out there. I said, look, told the developer, I'm not going to take his work. He's young. He's learning. He admits he made a mistake. I'll give you some supervision. We'll try to get this job back on track. So it's about respect and you have to know how to deal with people. I always tell the story, Valentine, when I first started out, I was a raving lunatic. I thought that yelling got more. It doesn't. You go to the job. Why isn't this getting done? Why isn't that? You go around yelling. You're stressed out. You have dates to meet. There's liquidated damages, and it actually is counterproductive. It really is. So you learn as you go through business, and you learn. I call it construction psych 101. You have to learn. You're dealing with a lot of different men, a lot of different personalities. So you learn to maneuver your way through your manpower, your developers, the equity guys. They all have different egos and personalities. So is owning your own business for everyone? No. You have to. It's a balancing act. You have to show up, like you said. You have to be. Sometimes I think you got to be in 4 places at one time, right? You have to be in the office. You got to take calls. You got to do this. You got to be out there. You got to meet with guys. So, it's tough, but if you're determined and you have a goal, you'll do fine. But it's not for everyone. There's a lot of people that don't want to be stressed out like that. It's there's a lot of time constraints, especially in construction. But, there's other businesses I'm sure they could be successful at. But my opinion, being in business is not for everyone. It takes a different kind of personality and mindset.
Yeah, no, I agree. And
Yeah.
and even more in our industry, like I think industries are so different, and some don't require that you deal with people. For example, you open a small shop and you don't deal with people that much, or like there are so many industries and they vary, but ours, it's really complex because you have to deal with people no matter what. Like the scale of what we do, and unless you are building, I don't know, a dog kennel or something like that it's too small, you can do it yourself. Like,
no, you got to deal with everybody.
You have to deal with people all the time, and you have to deal with partner up. Basically, I think it's the only industry in the world where the project changes every time. The people you are partner up change every time. So the complexities change every time. So it's just insane. For me, I guess it's kind of one of the more complex industries in the world, and you need a special mindset to get into it.
Yeah, you do. Every job, when you start a new job, right? Okay, let's see who the plumber's on this one. Okay, let's see who they pick. Oh God, this guy never works. Oh, right? And you're like, oh, it's going to be a long job. Or, yay, we worked together for the last 10 years. This is going to be great. That's the best time when you go on job, because I'm a sub, right? So I work with developers directly or GCs. I'm actually going to become a GC eventually because I wind up doing it anyway. So, the best thing is when you work with the guys before, because then they know you, especially me. I'm a woman in a man's world. If you don't know me and I show up on a job and I say I'm here to frame the walls, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, right? It's going to be like, okay, yeah, she's going to do it. And then I start snapping lines because I lay out all my own projects. I don't let any of my foremen, I'll have them snap lines with me, but I make sure that I'm there for the first week and I lay out the job and I go through all any conflicts with ADA, I make sure all that is addressed. When I leave the job, I make sure that the layout is right. They sign off on it and my guys can go to town, right? Because it's only as good as your name. I'm putting my name on that building, right? As a carpentry contractor, I'm responsible where the walls go. If I put them in the wrong place, your HVAC is not going to work. Your fire might not work. Your electric's going to have a problem with their lighting. So it's important, that everything's in the right place. You can't make mistakes, you know? So it's important to me to go out there, and you're right. And every job's different, but a lot of times, look, our industry is driven by cost. It's all about the low bid. I had multiple podcasts about this. Unfortunately, the numbers are it, and sometimes they skimp on their supervision when you're working with GCs. They don't put the sharpest guys out there. They don't want to pay top dollar, and they hire experienced subs, right? It's a brilliant mindset. Experienced subs will run the jobs themselves. And then you can hire like a laborer turned super, right, to unlock the door and do this, call the office if there's a problem. And I get it. It's cost driven. But when you finally get on a job and you're like, oh, great, we've been working together forever. So we'll have our own meetings, right? What are you doing here, Pat? I'll have this done by this date. And we just work together. And then we text each other. Before they come to the site. How many times have you driven to the site and they keep saying they're ready for you, right? And then you get to the site and they're not ready for you. Right. So what do? You got to take your crew and you either got to bring them to another job or you got to pay them for the day and you're done. You don't get anything done. So ideally in business, you like to earn the income to offset the cost, right?
Yeah.
Something that I think they forget, that if you bring a crew of 6 guys and you're driving, you have travel time, gas, hopefully you can get a day's pay for these guys. They work and they make you money. But, it's nice to work with guys that you've been worked with before. You text with each other on what your schedules are and what's done and what they can do. And then they'll ask me, can you one-side this so I can get this in, with drywall, and we work together, but it's not all like that. Like you said, every job's different. Every trade's different. It's all a melting pot of different personalities. It's
That's
tough.
a good way of describing it. Melting pot.
It's tough. It's tough. And it's nice. Like I said, it's nice when I work with the guys because then they don't judge me, right? They're like, oh, she knows what she's doing. This chick's pretty good, right? It's good. Because then I'm just like, let's just get some money, Yeah. I always say, Valentine, it's a great industry. You meet so many people. You really do. You meet a lot of people, but we're all there to make money, right?
Yeah.
We all have a lot of friends. It's nice to make some friends along the way. Absolutely. But we're there to earn a living and make some money. That's the number one priority when you're on the job. So.
Oh, absolutely. And the margins on our industry are also thin. You would think because you're building a 10 million, 20 million, or $100 million building, but margins are thin and money is important. But that also leads me to a question, because I'm an architect, right? And I've been on the side and for a while, but then I came back to the office. And what is happening nowadays, at least on the architecture side, is that technology is, I know. Everybody hates us. We're a mess. I know. I can say it because I'm an architect, but that's the way it is.
There's some really good architects.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the cut and paste guys. You got to review your drawings, but go ahead.
But a trend that we are seeing is, and at least in our industry, which is just doing design and shop drawings, is that technology is increasing the speed and lowering the cost so much. Because they're not that big of a risk. You don't need a robot or any hardware. You can just do it on a computer, right? Like you automate, you tag it, you add dimensions. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's happening, right? Do you see a trend of technology increasing the speed on what the things you do as a sub also happening, or you think it's just a really slow pace on things being more efficient every year?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I think there is a lot of technology coming around, but I think it's being implemented slowly because not everybody is open to it. You know as well as I know, AI is coming. It's here. It does, I think in your industry more than mine. I think AI is helping out a lot with designs, but you're always going to have old school mindset, right? Guys just get used to doing, and myself included, you get used to doing things the old fashioned way. We had that conversation before we went on camera. I run parallel. I use technology and I still compare it to the old school highlighted drawings I print out. Not all the guys in the field know how to work an iPad. They're old school. They're blue collar, right? They want to build it from the actual physical drawings. They want to be able to take it, and sit and figure it out. So I think it's a mixture of both. I see it more. I see more technology coming on the layout side. There's a lot more coming with like the lasers, stuff like that. But as for the building itself, you get new materials, new products, make your life a little bit easier. I see a lot of new products coming out, head clips and stuff like that, quick headers, right? So ready arches. So I see it that way. Stuff that we did anyway, but we just did it by ourselves. Like we'd snip the track, right? So we know how to actually make it, but it comes already done. So 6 of one, half dozen of another, right? You spend the labor snipping the track or you buy it for 3 times the cost. I don't know. You could do it both ways. But, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of new products, a lot of new computers, a lot of new programs to make your life easier. Construction management's big with technology with that. But I don't know. I think it's a slow roll, honestly. That's my opinion. It's slowly rolling in. But, the bigger guys, your Turners, your Skanskas, the big guys, they use a lot of technology-driven stuff. They're building high rises. They have to. I'm building one building at a time, office buildings and stuff like that. But I think it's going to get there eventually. I try to stay up on it, honestly. I try to stay up on it because it's coming no matter what.
Yeah, it's coming. No, I do think absolutely that in your case, until we have, I don't know, robots that can, put a drywall or something like that, that it's going to happen. Eventually it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but eventually it's going to happen. But what about prefab? Like I've seen so many.
That's what actually I'm getting into, actually. That's my passion. So that's I'm glad you brought that up. I see that taking over big time. I just don't see any way around it. The prefab CFS, the cold form steel, is here to stay. They are not the panels of 20 years ago. They came out years ago, I'm sure and it was a disaster, right? It was the guy that wanted to just create it himself. These guys now, the manufacturers and tech guys, they got it. They got big, big facilities. They give you everything. They give you the package. They're delivering it. It's a Rector set, right? So they're giving you the structural drawings, the clips. They're giving you everything marked. And I believe in that. A lot of the older guys, I call them master carpenters, because years ago, a master carpenter knew every aspect of carpentry. They're retiring or they passed away, right? And the next generation is kind of sticking to their individual slots, right? So one guy's a framer, another guy only wants to do ceilings, right? So they don't have an all-around carpentry. So you got to have your lead guys, of course. I believe it's going to be a money saver, a time saver, because you get it delivered to the site. You have a crane cost. You can get away now with one lead guy. And really the rest of the guys you're no longer a craftsman, right?
Yeah.
You're a laborer putting stuff together.
You're just an installer, basically.
Right. And to me, an installer is a laborer. You do have to know a little bit about the industry, but you could get your lead guys to oversee that, right? So instead of having 10 carpenters and a foreman, now you can have 4 or 5 laborers and a lead guy and a junior lead, right? So you're saving money in the long run. Stick for stick, this, wood is cheaper. But in the long run, when you do all the numbers and the time that you're going to save, because I get the manufacturing guys to comparatives from me, I ask them for a pro forma on certain jobs. And in the long run, the developer saves money. especially if they have high interest construction loans. There's so much, your insurance costs, your construction loans, the final insurance on the building. You're going to get a better rating. It's non-combustible. There's just so much. Down to dumpsters. There's no waste. You get it delivered already cut and put together. Nobody thinks about that. You could probably save $50,000 to $80,000 on dumpsters. Stupid, right? Adds up.
Yeah.
Adds up.
You even have those robots that just mark where you should install it on the slab and everything. So
have you seen it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's the future. It's the future. I talk to some of the developers I work for right now, and they keep building 4/1s, 5/2s. And I'm like, why are you building this out of wood next to the ocean? It's all moisture. Like, what does wood do? It expands and contracts.
But those are the kind of things that it's just stupid. Like like here in Miami, right? They still, in some places they still use wood, and you will see the signs. There are some places that still use it.
I thought Florida was federal wood.
What?
I thought Florida did.
Most of it, but there are some. Not sure that much Miami, but the other coast, there are some places. Yeah. So stupid, and I've seen it some places, and it's just so stupid. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I follow a guy on LinkedIn, Robert Johnson. Great guy if you've never followed him. He is a consultant for the cold form steel prefab and framing itself. He's a huge advocate. I had conversations with him because I've been trying to get housing built out of metal. I'm a metal advocate. I think the wood should be saved for interior finishes. My opinion. There's not as much wood. The wood is not it's not quality anymore. The average, I talked to an architect here locally, the average 2x on the market today is only from a 3-year-old tree. There's no strength in that tree. There's none. It's like a toothpick, right? So why are you building these big apartment complexes where people are living with their children, right? With matchsticks. I call them matchsticks. You could be insulted, but it's just not smart. It's not smart to do, especially you got this, and it's unfortunate. It really is, with California fires, Hawaii. It's just unfortunate that it takes tragedies for people to start thinking outside the box, right? They've been building houses out of wood. Why are you building them? Like you said, because they've always built them like that. Like, nobody wants to think outside the box and start saying, well, maybe that's old, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the smart. Kind of like electric cars hit the wall, right? Nobody wanted to think about driving an electric car. And then it finally kept pounding the pavement, knocking on the door, right? And now it's a little bit more acceptable now. So unfortunately,
it's tough.
It's
tough because I feel that in our industry, and I've met so many and interviewed so many like founders of startups, right, that they have tried to do things differently, and they all say the same thing. The technical part is not the big problem here. No, it's not. It's more about, it's just about sales. It's not sales because people, they don't want to invest. Because I bet if I speak to you and I tell you that this technology is going to save you 5%, and I can prove it, and you're going to get a, ROI in 2 years, it's going to be a no-brainer for you. You're going to pay it because you're going to make more money. But in general, it's so hard to convince the GCs or the trades to implement certain technology. And part of me doesn't blame them, because there is a lot of risk also when you implement something that might not be successful on the field. Like I feel the office on the construction side is one thing, on the construction industry is one side.
Yes.
We architects don't have those kind of risks unless you're, using the software to calculate the structure, but in general, the risks are not as big as the field.
I agree with that. Look, it's all about risk. I see it every day. I see buildings being over-designed on a daily basis because, no disrespect, not you really, it would be the engineers, Structural engineers are so afraid of losing their seal because there's so much insurance and premiums and it's ridiculous. And they over design because they're worried about their seal. And I kind of can't blame them. But, as the person that puts it together for the last 30 years, I'm like I have a temporary wall going up, right? In a Costco warehouse. I'm like, why are you using 16 gauge? There's no drywall on the wall. It's got poly. It's only going 28 feet. Why wouldn't you just use an 18 gauge? Or, they want 8-inch 16 gauge. And I'm like, that's like $150,000. It's 800 feet of wall, right? They want me to drop poly on it and then put wood for the first 8 feet in case I guess look, I get it. It's a liability. There's forklifts. There's people working there. But I just think it's over-designed. It's a temp wall, right? But I don't have that seal. I don't get paid to question designs. I do sometimes. But I think it's going to come down to you, architects, engineers taking the risk, designing more with the metal. That's my opinion. I think if you start designing it and you start talking to your clients, I think it's going to be more acceptable. I had a conversation after Sandy in New Jersey, Hurricane Sandy. We built a woman a house. It was in the newspaper. Me and my late husband, for a single mother of 3, we rebuilt her house out of metal. It was a B building, right? It turned into a miniature commercial building. It was amazing. She loves it. She's still living there. And she's like, why aren't all these houses built like this? I go, people are resistant to change. I would talk to people, owners, they want to rebuild their house. You're not supposed to do that. That's only for commercial buildings. And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, it's never been done before. I don't want to be the first one and have the problems. Mindset, again. But it's just people are comfortable. They don't know. They don't like change. Most people do not like change. They don't. They like to be comfortable.
Actually, nobody like change, but you do it anyway. I mean, nobody's comfortable with, hey, Pat, you have to move out of your house and go to another house. You're going to say, no, right. I don't want to. You might do it, but I mean, the question is, are you willing to do it anyway? I think that's the.
Well, it comes back to this thing, no risk, no reward. That's like me going back to my roots, right? Should I spend that $100? Shouldn't I use it for diapers? Shouldn't I use it for formula? The kids were babies, right? No risk, no reward. I had something in my head and I was destined to do it. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I worked and worked and worked. Failure was not an option, Valentine. It wasn't. It was my kid's future. So it's tough. I'm willing to take risks. Again, with personalities, it's types. I talk to every developer I know, and I'm like, you really need to just at least entertain the comparative pro formas on your design. They just use the same architects over and over. They use the same footprint of the buildings. They just adjust it to the site, and they're just comfortable with that. Busy, time frame. Guys are busy. They don't want to sit down and change the design. They don't want to sit with the architects. Costs money, right?
Absolutely not. But there are also things happening that for me is just incredible, which is some companies these are technology companies, right? That they try to sell to architects or engineers or SAPs. And in the end, like I said, they're having a hard time doing it. So what they're doing, they're deciding to become their own. Instead of being a startup selling software, they're deciding to become their own GC, to become their own architect. And some of them are a mess, yes. But some of them are being successful and are destroying the competition because now they're not taking a lot of time designing a building, but they're using algorithms to do it. So they're doing it 100 times cheaper and 100 times faster and 100 times better. So that's another lesson that I think the industry is teaching a lot of like old school companies. It's like, don't think that the progress is going to be slow, because it's going to happen like the electrical market, the electrical vehicle market, like it happened with Tesla, right? Like, no, nowadays it's just different, but they were the first one They invested a lot and they proved that it can be done. So the other companies were like, what? We have to build
Exactly.
electrical
Why
vehicles
did they
because
become successful though? Because they kept at it. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept making it better. He kept making the battery life longer because that was what are all the complaints in the beginning, right? When he first came out, this is the complaints, right? The slow charging, the battery life, the miles that you get out of each battery, right? So, and he just kept reinvesting into the technology and he got the best of the best working on it. And I'm not saying that these guys can't be their own GCs. They can, you know, but I guarantee the ones that are successful are hiring the right people to oversee it. Just like the other kid that, he's a kid to me. He's younger than my own children. He made the mistake. He wanted to get into a new area of construction and he didn't hire anybody to oversee what he didn't know anything about. So to me, it's all about, you have to put the right people in the positions to make you money. I always go back. I forget, was it Trump or was it Musk who said it's a sign of intelligence to surround yourself with people that are more intelligent to you than you, because you become more successful. And those people that want to work with you, that are that intelligent is a bonus, right? If you got the best of the best in the industry, that's fantastic. So, you have to pay. And we're circling back to the money driven area. You got to have differences in quality and abilities, and you have to pay. I have a sweatshirt that I wear, Valentine, on the job site. It's so funny. It says on the back, and everybody asks me where I got it. I should probably print them out. And it says, paying for my experience, not my time. Because people will pay an engineer or an architect, right? 500, whatever you guys make on a particular job, depends on how big it is, to come out and inspect for them or take a look at something or do an as-built, right? But they want me to just charge them for a carpenter for the day. Well, but I know in my mind exactly what they know. So don't pay me for my time for the 8 hours, pay me for my experience. If the job is worth $2,500 to draw up an as-built and just scan it over to your architect for him to stamp, right? I'm doing the job. I mean, obviously they have the stamp and you guys are responsible for the final design. But if I'm doing all that work, I deserve to get paid for the knowledge. That's my opinion. But you dealing with developers that only want to pay you, if I'm a carpenter, they want to pay for a day's carpenter. It's in your contract, right? You have your per diem pay times. They don't want to pay for your knowledge. So I always wear that shirt, that hoodie, because it's funny. And everybody's like, oh, that's great. Pay me for my knowledge, not my time. But that's more on the admin side, because knowledge costs money.
It does. No,
knowledge costs money. Do you want to take your chance? It's great to take a chance with I was there, a young company. It's great. But if you have somebody that is a very important client and you're a GC, you kind of don't want to take a chance sometimes. You kind of want to work with the guy that has the knowledge, the wisdom, who's done it 100 times.
Eventually it's going to pay off, because it's not, I don't see it as like it costs you for you to basically have all that knowledge. But for me, it's like the more I pay, not everywhere, not always, right? But the more I get people who has more knowledge, the more money I'm going to save. I know it's going to be a little bit more expensive up front, but then doing the job is going to be much, much more easier.
It's going to go smoother. You're going to have less problems. I'm on another job, architect came the other day. He's scratching his head. He's like, I don't understand. These should have been caught, I'm like, somebody's got to do an overlay, right? Somebody's got to know that door is going to hit the toilet, right? Is anybody doing overlays anymore? It's like, but
team coordination.
It's coordination. And you know what? I'm a carpenter by trade. That's what I do. But I think personally, one of the most overlooked engineering aspects of a commercial building is a mechanical engineer. That people do not want to spend the money. Just put the ductwork up, and then they get upset when it's done and one room's hot, the other room's cold, and the calculations weren't done. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that a developer can make is trying to cut corners on a mechanical engineer. That's my
yeah. I think the typical thing is like most offices is like it's uncomfortable. It might be cold, but then you have the breeze on your neck and you get sick and that happen. And it's like, can you not add more diffusers and have a like a softer flow?
That's over this one and close it up.
Exactly. Or like there are so many options to do it.
Think about it. They're spending $10-20 million on these buildings. Why wouldn't you spend another 1.5 and get it done right? Those are the bones of your building.
Well, it's the kind of things that people don't see when they're buying like a condo, or it's the stuff you realize after, or you rent an office. It's the stuff you realize after using it. It's the same as something that that I think only happens in America, which is bedrooms. They don't have lights on the roof. For me, it's just insane. Like you're investing a lot of money and you cannot put a light on the roof of the bedroom. Like you just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, I agree. I renovated my own condo in Florida, and I was like, oh God, I got to fur all this out so I could put some hi-hats in the living room, because they have, back in the 70s and 70s, I think this place was built. It's all popcorn. So it's just cheap, right? It's concrete slab. So, and then I scrape it down, and I had to do my own calculation. She'll appreciate this as an architect, right? So I'm going from the kitchen down to the slider, and I'm like, oh God, it was off so much the slab. I was like, I can't bring it all the way through because I'm going to hit the glass. So I kind of made myself like I stopped at a stopping point over the dining room, and I kind of created a soffit, right? And I made it like a little reveal, because I actually couldn't bring it through the living room to the slider because it would have hit the glass. I could have made the pocket, but I don't really like that look, to have.
I mean, you can do it, but it looks.
I don't like it. It is what it is. So I bought some nice standing lamps. I wanted to do. It is what it is. You got to work with what you have.
Yeah.
It's an old building, but I don't get it either. People shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? They don't realize what they should have done until the building's over. And same thing with the size of the buildings. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in the development end of it, is they always undersize their operation. I built a 550,000 square foot distribution center for Nylabone dog bone people, right? They were putting 3 subsidiaries under one roof, and I demised it all out. It took, I don't know, a year and a half. There's a lot of work. Offices, truckers, cafes, all different stuff. So I told them, I said, you got a lot of businesses here. You sure you don't want to go for 1 million square? Oh no, that's too big. Soon as they finished it, they're like, we outgrew this place. Soon as they started putting in their stuff, and they started taking from their other locations, and they started racking, and they're trying to get, and that's another engineering, that's a great area of work, is the rack guys. They do a great job in the manufacturing distribution. They get you the most square footage out of that area of storage, any kind of I think it's incredible what they do. Any kind of manufacturing machines and conveyor belts, and they're going this way up. They're trying to get some most out of it. It's insane. And I never knew there was such an engineer. How ignorant was I? And then I became friends with them when I was there. I go, you guys do a great job. And he said the same thing. He's like, they undersized. They already outgrew before they're done moving in. So, the same thing, I built a brewery not too long ago. It's very popular right now. He took 4,500 square. He's trying to go into the next tenant. I'm like, dude, you're spending all this money. You should have just took on more space, right?
Yeah. Comes up to the money. Always to the money.
Always. But, you don't know. That's...
Yeah. No, also, yeah.
Doing something I don't know. It's my trade. It's your trade. But if you're a developer, you have money, you want to make some money, money makes money, right? And you start doing this, and you've never done it before, and you rely on other people.
Yeah. No, and we know how that ends. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't want to take more of your time, but because I know you're extremely busy.
I am.
But before we wrap this up, can I ask you a couple of ping-pong
Sure.
questions?
Sure.
Okay, let's start with a simple one. Can you tell us a great AC software?
For me personally, I use PlanSwift for estimating. I think it's a nice, pretty easy for, for the estimating. For communications, I know that most of the industry that I'm in, they use Procore. It's good to upload their drawings, and it's easy for the office to be on the same page as the field. As built drawings, any changes, interoffice memos, architects, they email and they put everything in one place. That's really good. It's kind of essential. And I actually like Builder Comms. That was created by a friend of mine, Ron Nussbaum. It's a communication software, and most of it's free. So I would actually tell anyone out there to take a look at what he created. He has a long history in construction. He oversaw, I think, over 1,700 guys. He did a good job with that little program. So I think that's good. But I kind of stick as a sub. I stick to the estimating. I don't really need as much of the communication because I'm in the Procore under the GC. So, it makes their life easier. But I use it for them. They put the drawings up there, any changes. That's
Makes sense.
ClanSwift is good, and so is Bluebeam. That's a good estimating program.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And then what do you think is the next big trend in the AC?
I think we're going to go back to cold form, pre-panelized panels. I think everybody's going to that. I think it's going to be huge in the future. They've invested, once again, they invested in technology. They have the manufacturing facilities, and they're pushing out, and they're starting to, they're pushing out a lot of different things still, Valentine. They're pushing out prefab barn dominiums, they're pushing out high rises, 20 stories in New York. So I think that's the future, in my opinion. I think it's pretty hot right now. And as far as the construction end of it, we all know it's going to be data centers, right? Data centers are huge right now. That's expected to, I think the construction end of it by 2030 is $500 billion. So
It's just
you got to put AI somewhere. So, and that entails the construction, the electric, the cooling systems. You know the deal. So I think data is huge, and it's going to happen fast.
Yeah, it's already happening, actually.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
I mean, people are signing. I've been following it since last summer with some colleagues of mine that do the environmental, and we've been following it together. And I think they said by June of 25, it's just been pulled off. It's like self-storage, right? They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. So they got to build enough buildings to hold all the cloud.
Yeah.
So you got Microsoft investing. You got you have Amazon investing.
Yeah.
Big
Meta, Intel, Nvidia, everybody. Yeah.
It's big money. And it's a very small industry. That's how to get a little bit bigger. I think only 6 or 7 I found this out in my travels. Only 6 or 7 families are in the industry, from what I hear.
Yeah. It's not that big. So
industry for generation. So I think I'm going to give them a run for their money. What do you think?
Yeah.
I can build those buildings or commercial buildings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, a little bit more complex.
A little bit more complex, but you hire the people that do them.
Yeah. For sure, you're not gonna use wood there for sure.
Yeah. You gotta hire electricians that have been doing data centers for years.
Yeah.
Gotta hire the cooling guys. You gotta hire all the people that have experience. And once again, you don't want to put people that are just starting out on very intricate work.
No, absolutely not. Okay.
That's my opinion.
That I agree. Then next one is, if you could collaborate with any person in history on any project, which person would you choose?
That's interesting conversation, right? So I would probably want to work with Donald Trump. I think he did a great job building Manhattan. I think he's a savvy businessman. Politics aside, whether you like him or hate him, I think he did a very good job building some very impressive buildings. I like his style. I like his designs. And on the residential end, I think I'd have to say Frank Lloyd Wright. I think he did a great job with horizontal planes, right? Going over the waterfall in Pennsylvania. I think he built that for the Kaufman entrepreneur. So I think that house is pretty impressive. How he cantilevered over the
It's
waterfall.
just insane. Yeah. Nowadays, it's still a really modern house, and it was built
It
decades ago.
really is. And for him to have that mindset and that concept in his head back then is quite impressive. Can you imagine what he built today? So, I look at it all the time because not too far from here in Jersey, it's in Pennsylvania. And I was like, that's incredible. He actually built the waterfall into the house, right?
Yeah,
It
it's
goes
just
down and down, and he cantilevered over the actual water. So it's that to me, I think was quite impressive with he was ahead of his time. Let's just say that.
it was for sure.
Yeah.
Outside the AC, what are your hobbies or activities you have passion for?
I would love to just lay on the beach and read a book. So, but I really enjoy gardening. I like being out in the woods, hiking. It's peaceful, when you're dealing with everything we deal with out on the job, running here, running there. I like to garden. I like to go out. I have a garden behind my house in the woods, and it's nature. Kind of ground you a little bit. I really enjoy that. Looking forward to the spring here. It's been cold.
Yeah, it's been cold here, so I cannot imagine up there.
Oh my God, it was below zero last week. And you got developers saying, why aren't the framers outside? I'm like, well, they kind of want to keep their fingers, right?
And that's below 0 Fahrenheit, not Celsius. So it's just insane. Yes.
It was so insane. I'm like, you got to be careful. These guys need a break. They need a place to warm that. They're not robots. They're men.
No, absolutely not.
They're men.
And last but not least, what's your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
You want to know what my favorite building is? I just love St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. I think it is an amazing design. I think when they were building it, it's the Gothic design they took from the Europe. And when you go in, I don't know if anybody's been inside, if you've been inside of it and you look up, it looks like stone, right? It looks like stone. But if you know the history of the building, stone wasn't in the budget. So they actually treated wood to look like stone because it was more affordable. So a lot of the ceiling on the roof is wood that was treated to look like stone. Yeah. So that's an interesting little factoid there. But the structure itself with the spires and then the garden inside, it's just the detail is just breathtaking to me. I love that. My mom went to school there, right? So when I was a kid, my mom used to take me up there and I used to just stare. I'm like, this is unbelievable, with the spires. And it's an incredible building. And it's still one of my favorite buildings to this day.
Interesting. I didn't know about the
Yeah,
mimicking rock, but now I will have to go again there to check that out. Yeah, I will go again. I've been there a couple of times, but I will go again and check that for sure.
Yeah, and you could Google it actually.
Yeah,
look and see where it is because they had a couple different years of progress building the initial. It's built in the 1800s, I think, where they stopped and they started and they added on and changed some things, and you could see where they changed. But it's an incredible building. There's some talent there building that building, I would say.
Very cool.
Craftsman, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Pat, this has been amazing. I've learned so much.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your time, and I think you are doing a lot of great things for the industry. So it was great meeting you and having you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And just all of your people that watch, the girls can do it too. Remember that. So there's lots of room in the construction industry for women, and I'm an advocate for that. I want them to know it goes from project management all the way down to owning the company. So women can do it, and it's important that they know that. So
It is not that there is room, is that we actually need desperately more women in the
do.
industry. Like so many smart women out there working in other industries, and we need more smart people in our industry. So for sure, come
Ask me
come
that.
to the dark side.
Yeah, come over. Yeah, come on over. We're having a party.
Yeah.
You know the craziness, but look, it's like any other job. Everybody's got the crazy part to it. But I think women have a lot to offer. That's my opinion. I think it's a valid opinion. I think women have a great eye. They have great attention to detail. They're very organized. They get stuff done. So, I've had a lot of developers tell me that you're very good at, doing a few floors at the same time. You have to have organization to be able to have crews on 6 different floors. You know this. So, women are able to do that. And I just would like them to know that they can do it too. They just have to be confident in what they have to offer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree on that. All right, Pat. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
your time, and
Ooh,
we
anytime.
keep following you to see what happens with your company and your book.
Yeah, I appreciate you
All right.
following. Yep. There'll be some exciting things coming up. I got a lot going on like everybody else, branching out a little bit, into development, into GC. And so it'll be fun. We got a bright future, right, Valentine?
I bet. For sure. For sure. All right, Pat. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.